Hello guys, this isn't a full sweep time on Hangout. I haven't done one this month, I won't be doing one. I was very ill, horribly ill, for several weeks. I still got throat, itchy throat. I'm fed up so much, but I really want to do this, sorry about this, because this is karma coming to bite an odious individual. Eric Swalwell, a really odious, now ex-congressman, Democrat, made a lot of noise during the Kavanaugh hearings. The way they treated Kavanaugh was these hags, their lies, and the media was just absolutely outrageous. Here's what Swalwell said at the time. This is 2018.
But the more and more cases that are separate and independent that look the same, pretty soon a prosecutor starts to say to a jury, and this is not a jury, but it's allegations that the arrows are pointing in the same directions. And what are the chances that 3 or 4 women independently who never met each other would have similar experiences with one person? So either, Ari, this person committed these horrific acts, or he is the single unluckiest person in the world for these people to conspire and make up lies against him. But it's a very hard case to make, the more allegations that come in.
What he said there is true, in as much as this is what a prosecutor would say, what they do say in such cases. And at times they go out of their way to, well, I'll put a link below to the Cliff Richard Outrage, an article I wrote some time ago. But during the Operation Newtown witch hunt, the police raided Cliff Richard's home while he was out of the country for what? For an allegation made in the 1980s. And they tipped off the BBC, put a camera in the air, helicopter. And this was clearly an attempt to provoke every lunatic, every chancer, every scumbag in the world to make some sort of allegation against Richard. Mostly males, because he's believed widely and erroneously to be homosexual. But, well, there were allegations made against him, but none of them was considered credible. I've seen 1 or 2 of them that are ludicrous. I haven't included them on the timeline because, well, I've covered Operation Newtown. But this was Swalwell talking about Kavanaugh. Now he's singing an entirely different song, because I'll just read from the Wikipedia entry. On April 10th, 2026, the San Francisco Chronicle on CNN reported that more than 4 women, had accused Swalwell of sexual misconduct, including rape. One former Swalwell staffer claimed Swalwell had sexually assaulted her on more than 1 occasion, including in a New York hotel room in 2024 when she was too intoxicated to give consent. And what if he was too intoxicated to give consent? Does that mean they raped each other? Now, he was doing things, it's clear he was doing things that he shouldn't have been, that a married man shouldn't be doing. And the guy's a scumbag. I sent him a message through Facebook to tell him that. But I also gave him some advice, which he may or may not take. Here is his lawyer.
So there are now 4 different women who accuse Congressman Swalwell of sexual misconduct. Is your position that all of them are lying?
Look, as an attorney, I look at credibility, I look at motive, and I have to question the timing of these allegations 25 days out from an election. Many of these allegations are from women who claim that the wrongdoing took place many years ago. And in those years, the evidence I've seen demonstrates that these women, certain of them, have reached out to the congressman on multiple occasions, wishing him nothing but the best, supporting his campaign, saying that they'd vote for him for governor, asking for references for jobs, attending social events with him. So from my perspective, looking at the facts, I do have to question the credibility of these allegations.
You hear that? These rape allegations, well, one rape allegation and other allegations go back years, and suddenly, I mean, I read one report that said there have been 50 allegations. I mean, just like that. And believe women. Well, this has already cost him his post as a congressman. No doubt he'll find some lucrative alternative employment elsewhere at some point. But all at once, bandwagon effect. Not so much the bandwagon effect here as I'm inclined to believe this is politically a political conspiracy, if you like. I mean, just like that, out of thin air, and they're all political contacts, women with whom he's worked, with whom he's associated, and who've apparently been to a hotel with him. Now listen to this.
You know that there's a long history and a lot of evidence of sexual assault experts who say that the victims often go back to the perpetrators, and that is frequently a thing. So just because they went back and continued a relationship with him, everything they're saying is not true?
So the victims keep going back to the perpetrator. Who says that? Experts. Experts. What experts? Rape crisis counsellors, rape trauma counsellors, feminist academics. If these women were enthralled to him in some way, if he had some sort of hold over them, some sort of leverage, if they live under the same roof, for example, yeah, common law wife or whatever, such allegations are not so easily dismissed. But I mean, seriously, what this guy's saying, what he probably doesn't realise he's saying, his talking head, is that there is no such thing as exculpatory evidence. Believe women. That's what he's saying, believe women. The rape allegation, one woman has waived her anonymity, and, well, she has zero credibility. I mean, I know that she had sex with Swalwell, but drunken sex, well, you know, as I said, well, they're both drunk. And the claim that he may have drugged her drink, no. That's all I have to say about Eric Swalwell. But I will mention another Democrat, Katy Perry. Katy Perry, as some of you may know, was married fairly briefly to Russell Brand, who is now facing rape charges in the UK. Same nonsense we've seen so many other times with media trolls. There's DJ also facing similar allegations based on media going looking for so-called victims, survivors. But this is interesting. This is from The Guardian. Police are investigating claims Katy Perry sexually assaulted the Australian actor Ruby Rose at a Melbourne nightclub more than a decade ago. I don't know why they always refer to female actors as actors now instead of actresses. But more than a decade ago, yeah. She claims that Perry, I'll spare you the details, but sexually assaulted her at a nightclub in 2010, and police are investigating. No statutes of limitations in Australia. As in the UK. What I'd actually like to see, I'd like to see her convicted and given a heavy sentence. And then maybe, just maybe, women and lawyers will wake up to what's actually going on. This garbage. Police investigating. I mean, right, I'm just slightly off this topic. I'll comment on one of the most high-profile false rape allegations, certainly the most high-profile one this year. Epsom. Earlier this month, a woman was allegedly gang raped in Epsom, and there was speculation that these were migrants. So many of these migrants have scumbags have assaulted, sexually assaulted, raped, even murdered women recently. I mean, there was a terrible case of Rhiannon White murdered by some scumbag from Sudan or wherever. Deng Majek, horrible creature. But 3 who arrived in a boat fairly recently have just been convicted of raping a young woman on Brighton Beach. A really horrific case, and one of them was actually a convicted murderer, convicted in absentia in Egypt. Not the first time a convict from Egypt has been convicted of rape in this country. But I went up to Epsom. There was a big protest on the Wednesday following. It was the weekend it happened. Big protest on the Wednesday. I went up there on the Thursday to take some photographs, and it turns out now that there was no rape. I don't think the police are telling the whole truth. What they claim is that this young woman left her discotheque, fell over, hit her head, became disoriented. I've found references in a couple of articles published a day or two after this alleged rape, alleged gang rape, which suggests to me that there were other people involved. So perhaps she had a bunk up with some guy, and then I don't know. I think we're going to know for a long time. They might bury this for 30 years under the usual. They usually close cases like this for 30 years, and you can go along to queue and dig in the files. I've done that. Unless they name this woman, it doesn't look like they're going to name her, does it? And they're going to charge her. So I really don't know what to think of the police here. But they were more intent on stopping the protests than the well-being of a woman who may well have been raped. But anyway, it does appear to be false. I should be adding it to the false rape timeline in due course. But regarding Eric Swalwell and anyone else who's accused by a woman with whom he's had a relationship or no relationship, months, years down the line, no, I mean, this needs credible evidence, and this isn't credible, even for a scumbag like Eric Swalwell. Anyway, I'll make that, I'll leave it here. I'll add this to, upload it to YouTube, and then eventually to Internet Archive. I will try to make at least one Full Soap Timeline hangout next month, the merry month of May, depending on how my health and other circumstances, depending on how things turn out.